So we're looking at extreme selling in oil down to 1998 levels at one point. And the reason is because it has a lot to do with May futures contracts expiring tomorrow. And the $10 to $12 that you're getting a spot price in cash delivery because there isn't any place to put it. No one wants it. No one's using oil. Planes are parked. People are not driving. And that's why you're looking at no storage available with this glut of oil across the U.S. But if you look ahead to the futures contracts for, say, the month of June, we're looking at a bit of recovery. June delivery, from what I see, is at $22 a barrel. July is $25, and futures contracts for August is looking at $28. So if we get past this for the May and June period, we could be looking at gains once again, a rise in oil prices. At least this crash might be temporary.
I got it. Could be a huge week.
Yeah, and plus, by the way, the stock is up some 40% from mid-March. Talking about explosive moves in the stock price, and people, of course, watch Netflix, and the main catalyst for the stock move will probably be how many subscribers they signed up in the first 3 months of this year. Analysts are expecting maybe 7.5. Netflix itself has guided for maybe 7 million new subscribers in the first 3 months of this year. And this is coming off a tough compare from last year. Don't forget, the first 3 months of 2019 was when people scrambled to get their Netflix subscription before the price increase. So they're comparing to 9 million from last year. Still, though, given that people are stuck at home, the guidance forward for the next quarter will be very important. What will people sign up from the March to June quarter? And anticipation is that we'll get above the 7 million mark, but that's usually what moves the stock. But I just want to point out that we are expecting a really ugly earnings season. According to earnings estimates and averages, we're looking for earnings and profit to be down 11% in the first 3 months of this year, 21% in the next quarter, in the second quarter of this year, and overall down 9% for the entire year. So this has pretty much been priced in, but I think it's individual names and stories that'll count. Stu?
Yeah, but I'm watching Netflix. I mean, I am literally watching Netflix.
Exactly.
I'm watching the stock as well. I mean, that company, man, they got some good new stuff.
And if they sign up someone like you as a new subscriber, what does that mean for their future, right?
That is incredible.
In terms of whether or not to reopen the economy. We know that we are suffering right now. More than 22 million have filed for jobless claims. But despite that, despite the fact that we have seen a spike in jobless claims, you know, the markets are just 11 to 15% away from record highs once again, something that has surprised the U.S. president over the weekend, as well as you heard in some of those task force briefings. And we've come up some 30% from those lows that we saw at the end of March. So, yes, I think we're divided, but I think most of America knows that this country was built to be open and built to be working.
That is true.
Releasing a 23-page plan late on Sunday evening, calling for the reopening of the Las Vegas Strip, hopefully in mid to late May, because Nevada hasn't suffered as much as other states. For instance, he pointed to 3,700 cases out of the 700,000 cases of coronavirus across the U.S., 158 deaths. And Maddox says that we can do this with health precautions, reopening the Vegas Strip. That includes thermal cameras, social distancing, and the like. And he says that we should start reopening because Nevada's economy has been hammered, but we are looking at a flattening in the curve right now. But it has been costly for Wynn in particular, approximately $3 million that they're losing each and every day, $180 million for the past 2 months. And the stock is down over close to 45% since the start of this year. So Wynn says, given that we have this phase 1 reopening of states that can with fewer cases, the Las Vegas Strip should be one of the first.
It seems to me that testing is the all-important item here. You've got to be able to test who's got it, who's got a high temperature, who doesn't have it. That makes reopening a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. He says wearing face masks, also testing maybe a facility nearby for those that actually work at the casinos. And, of course, dealers will have to wear gloves and masks as a precaution in the future until we get a vaccine.
All right, we're looking
Maddox
towards
releasing a 23-page plan to reopen the Las Vegas Strip, hopefully in mid to late May. And that's because he argues that Nevada hasn't been hurt and hit as hard as other states in the coronavirus pandemic. He quotes that there are only 3,700 cases of the 700,000 across the U.S., 158 dead so far in the state. But Nevada's economy has cratered and has been really facing a tough time as a result of this. 40 million people visit Las Vegas each and every year, but because of the coronavirus pandemic, it's had to shut down. So he says we're losing 3 million per day, 180 million over the past 2 months, and also suffering in Macau as well. Time to reopen, according to him.
My goodness me.
This weekend for the Dow, a few Dow components to keep an eye on. So we have IBM reporting on Monday. That's later on today. Coca-Cola, Travelers, Intel, and the like. Verizon, Amazon. pardon me, American Express. I was just waiting for this board to come up. But we are looking at declines for profits. That is expected in the first 3 months of this year. The S&P so far, we're looking at declines of maybe 11%, maybe 21% in the next quarter. That's March to June because of the coronavirus, but then a rebound in the back half. Now, we haven't pointed this out, but this is the Dow components reporting before the S&P. You got to put in Netflix, right? Netflix is reporting after the bell on Tuesday. People are expecting, obviously, the subscriber growth number to be the most important metric. Are we going to get 7.5 million at least global ads? Some say we will easily exceed that. And then the guidance forward, given that people are stuck at home, what are they doing? They're streaming at record rates. They're going to add a lot more in the March to June period. But Stu, if you take a look at the markets, we've bounced back from that 500 points drop. And look at the NASDAQ. This is tech-heavy names that we're talking about in positive territory once again. And we're looking at a rally in Amazon, in also Facebook, even today Alibaba. And there's a bifurcation, don't you think, of the tech names that have outperformed and this 30% bump up and the old, shall we say, old
You're right.
chip names.
The tech names, they don't suffer if the price of oil is at $10 a barrel. What's it to Amazon? What's it to Microsoft? What is it to NVIDIA? Nothing to them. They're doing just fine, thank you very much.
But it matters to Chevron. It matters to ExxonMobil.
It sure does.
And GE.
Texas
is a company, one of the largest in China and arguably globally. If you take a look at the statistics, they're trailing behind Amazon and also Microsoft and Google when it comes to cloud computing. So number 4 in the world by market share. And as a result of the quarantines and the coronavirus, they've noticed that there's going to be a big play in the digital economy. That means people are staying home, watching their Netflix, streaming, doing a lot of their banking online, and also working from home. So as a result, they are now investing some $28 billion into cloud computing over the next 3 years, and they're focusing on infrastructure and trying to challenge the likes of Amazon and Microsoft globally. I think that kind of makes sense, Stu, given that I feel that the coronavirus has really changed the way that we operate, and the digital economy and cloud computing and not having physical servers, that's the wave of the future, and it's here to stay.
Oh, no question about it, Susan. The
virus is now facing a series of lawsuits in that they weren't forthcoming in information for the passengers and having them, I guess, complete their itineraries and getting on board, despite the fact that there were cases of coronavirus. So Princess Cruises facing a series of lawsuits. We also heard the same from Celebrity Cruises, which is owned by Royal Caribbean, Costa Cruises, owned by Carnival Cruises. And as a result, the industry is losing $92 million and more than 300 direct and 620 total American jobs, they say, each and every day. And if this continues for the rest of the year, they say they will lose around $51 billion, and that'll impact 343,000 total American jobs. Now, Stu, I should point out that, as you mentioned, these are clobbered stocks so far this year, and shorts, meaning that those are betting that the stocks will continue to fall, some of the highest on the market. We should point out also that in terms of the shorts against the broader market, highest still, despite the rebound that we've seen since January 2016. So not everyone believes so far in this explosive rally that we've seen from the middle of March.
I just wonder how many people will want to take a cruise when all this is done. I don't know when that is, and I don't know what you mean by when it's done. Yeah. Some semblance of normal. I just wonder how many people will actually take a cruise. What do you think, Susan?
Well, I don't think a lot, and that's why you see this reflected in the stock prices, and people are betting that they will continue to fall. They didn't get any part, by the way, of that $2.2 trillion stimulus plan. Why? Because they're not technically U.S. companies. They're domiciled overseas, and that's why they're not going to get any help from the U.S. government. So you really have to be concerned about some of these names.
You have to call it they open the door to going back to work, isn't it?
Right, exactly, to reopening the economy. And a staggering number that was released last night by President Trump. He said that the U.S. has now tested 4.18 million Americans. If you want to take that number into context, that's actually more than those tested in France, the U.K., South Korea, Japan, Singapore, India, Austria, Australia, Sweden, and Canada combined. So we also have to take into context as well the huge American population in comparison to those countries. But also New York State today will start testing for antibodies. They're launching a test of 3,000 of the residents to make sure that they have the antibodies, they are safe to get back to work. And this, again, is part of that reopening phase that New York State is in. They've just reopened some of their harbors and their marinas. And obviously, given that this is a pinpoint when it comes to the U.S. economy here in New York State, they want to get that reopening sooner rather than later.
Yes, sooner rather than later. Well said, Susan. Is poised to emerge as the big winner, stronger than ever. What do you say?
Consensus, because they're going to report results at the end of this month, and analysts are saying they're going to make $73 billion in sales in the first 3 months of this year. That comes to $10,000 per second, night and day. And don't forget, Amazon has been hiring 175,000 new jobs. They're spending $500 million for these jobs and to pay them more. So that takes their global workforce to 1 million. And over the past month, we've seen the stock bump up, spike some 42%, and that has cemented Jeff Bezos as the richest man on the planet. So he is now worth $145 billion, worth more than $40 billion than Bill Gates, and the third largest company in the U.S.
$10,000 a second, 24/7.
Yeah, and don't forget, we came off the best 2 weeks for the Dow since the 1930s, the Great Depression, which has left us around 15% to 18% away from record highs once again. So this might be a bit of profit taking, since I think it's pretty much anticipated that oil prices were cratering and they continue to crater. Now, that's actually good for the U.S. consumer. Yes, it's bad for the big oil majors that make up just roughly around 10% of the S&P weighting, but it's good for consumers, given that Deutsche Bank says that for every penny decline in the oil price, that's $1 billion extra in spending power. And as you know, the U.S. economy is powered by the U.S. consumer. Also, we have 20% of the S&P reporting earnings this week, and I think it's pretty much priced in, don't you think, Stu? That's going to be ugly, at least for the first quarter of this year, down 11% for profit, according to FactSet estimates, cratering 21% in the second quarter. But then we're expecting a bit of a rebound in the back half of this year.
I mean, the earnings reports that we've seen so far, I mean, it's a very limited number. What we've seen so far, down 29% in terms of profits compared to last year. That is a major drop. And you're right, Susan, we know it's going to be bad. Yeah. Surely that is priced in.
Price ahead. Yeah, you look ahead and you think, okay, well, some of these states, 29 states that are available to reopen in phase one, this could be a faster and sharper rebound than anticipated, and that's what the markets are pricing in.
But what the stock market has not priced in, I don't think, is this crash in the price of oil. Granted, it's good for consumers. I mean, I love paying $1.50 for a gallon of gas, but not many people are driving. Nobody's commuting to work any longer. Very few. So I don't know how that's going to be priced into the market, especially if it falls.